All right, let's talk about structures. Structures are one of my favorites. I'm actually launching Xcode here, and I'm going to start a new Xcode project instead of we usually do playgrounds, Xcode playgrounds, but today I want to do an Xcode project to show you how you might use a structure. So I'm going to choose a single view app. I'll just call it structured test or example, and hit next. It's going to say, where do you want to put this? I'll put it in my demos folder. You can put it on your desktop, documents, wherever you want. Okay, so here's the Xcode interface, and we have another episode talking about the Xcode interface. But what I want to do first is I want to go up here to File. I hope you can see the File window up there. And I'm going to choose New File. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to click down inside of here because I want the file to go somewhere down in here. I don't want it showing up in some weird place. File. And then I'm going to go to iOS tab and select Swift file. I didn't know you could do that. I usually select Swift file and then click next, but you can double click on it too. Okay, and let's call this file table. Sure, we'll call it a table. Okay, I've made a new Swift file. I'm going to delete Foundation. I don't need Foundation for what I'm about to do. I'm going to make a struct. Now, what's a struct? I'm going to call the struct table, and then I'll tell you what a struct is. Not equatable. Table. It might or not, actually it might not allow me to call it table because table isn't a thing inside of Xcode. All right, so what's a struct? Think of a struct as a blueprint. So we might be making a lot of different tables. They might have different wood. They might have 3 legs, and some might have 4 legs, and I don't know, different sizes. So let's think of some properties of a table. Well, there's like certainly what the number of legs. So table number of legs, we'll call it just for now. Of type, well, that would be an integer. I would think there's not a fraction of a leg. And then let's see, let's make another, so material, like maybe it's a metal table, maybe it's a wood table. And I'll just make that a string for now, but ultimately you'd probably make that an enum. And then I'll give it a name, because maybe in your store you call that table, I don't know, if you were IKEA, you'd probably call it Gundquak, or what do they call it? Igor, or I don't know what their tables are called, but you get my drift. Okay, so there's some properties for a table. So now, if you're going to say let IKEA table equal table, and then it's gonna, if you tab here, it's gonna fill in all that stuff, and you're gonna have to enter in the number of legs. Let's say typically the number of legs on a table is 4. Material is, let's say it's, gosh, what's that stuff called? Particle board. So it's got to be a string. I'll say particle board and wood. Why not? Remember, strings are between quotation marks. And we'll call this one, sure, we'll call it Igor. I don't remember what IKEA tables are called. So using the struct up here, we've declared there's a new table in town. And you can, now that we have that new table declared, you can do something like IKEA table, or print IKEA table dot material, or print IKEA table dot name. So you can access the properties of the table down here. Of course, it's going to give me a hard time because it doesn't want me to print. This isn't playgrounds. You can't just print anywhere. You've got to be inside of a function. Now, you saw how I made a new Swift file up here? That's kind of a new thing. I haven't explained that, but your ultimate project will have a lot of different Swift files, and you want to keep these structures are like objects, or they're like things. So you want to keep the structures probably outside of your view controller. Because what if multiple views want to access that information? Or what if the second view wants to make a table, but only the, so make sure you keep your objects and stuff separate. I'll usually make folders up here. And one will be called model, and one will be called view, and one will be called controller. And I'll put my view controllers in the controller, and I'll put my objects in the model, and then I'll put the storyboards inside of the view. And that just helps me keep stuff separate. So now if we go back to the view controller, how would we call a new table, let's say in the view did load? Well, actually, I'd probably make a new function. Let's just do that. And I'll call this function make IKEA table, just for now. Let's say it's just not taking any parameters in. What you'd probably do is write a make new table function and pass the parameters in, like name, material, and all that. But ain't nobody got time for that. And so then we would take that stuff we did over here. Where is it? Yeah, this. And we'd put like that stuff in here. So now when the view loads, make IKEA table. And it makes this IKEA table here. And it's going to yell at me because, hey, you've got an IKEA table and you're not doing anything with it. That's fine. So maybe we'll return an IKEA table. We learned that in our last one. So now instead of returning a string, we're going to return a whole table. So you can say let new table equal make IKEA table. So now it calls this function and returns the table. Oops, not yet, because I got to make a return statement here. And if this is confusing, you should watch my functions with returns and parameters video. I just made it, hot off the presses. Okay, let's see if it likes that. And up here it's like, yeah, that's fine, but you're not doing anything with it. So I'll print new table dot name. So did you see that? Like when you go to, now that we've got the new table, whenever you bring up new table and you hit the dot period, it brings up the different options. So like the number of legs and stuff like that. Hopefully that makes sense. So another way that I use a structure, well, actually let me explain one more thing about structures. You can also put functions in them. So maybe this is break. No, we can't make destroy. Destroy table. And so you would have some kind of fancy destruction, table destruction here. Action. So you can then over here in your view controller, now that you've put a function in there, you could just say new table dot destroy and then put parentheses afterwards. That means that you're calling this, you're going to destroy that table specifically. You're calling that action. You know, like what you would have probably is if a structure is an animal, maybe you'd have it make a sound, maybe you'd have it eat or sleep, might be a function. And to be honest, what I like to do, this is getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, this is just extra credit, is I like to keep all the properties up top, and then below I type extension, I type extension table, and then I put the functions down below. So extension is just like, I know I declared it up here, but I want to give that table some more functionality. So I'm giving it more functionality down here. That just keeps the variables and the constants and the variables separate from the actions. Just a way to clean up your code a little bit. Okay. Well, this is a pretty long video so far, so I'm going to stop it here. But that's how you create structures in Swift.